Warning: some topics may be disturbing or triggering to some viewers. If sensitive, listener and viewer discretion are advised. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is JoJo. I wanted to do something a little different today. It kind of correlates what I've been talking about on my podcast. And for those of you who have not listened in, if you are someone who feels like there's something up with today's society, that things aren't what they seem, then that podcast is for you. And if you are someone that if you're someone that isn't sensitive to a lot of different subjects, if you're a person that's not easily offended, then obviously that podcast is for you as well. Today is something a little more controversial. I know I'm going to ruffle a lot of feathers with this one because so many people have different opinions when it comes to the Me Too movement and also when it comes to Marilyn Manson. Now, I want to say several days ago, so maybe about 4 days ago, um, he did an interview on a podcast, I believe, and they asked him some not so good questions. I guess they were touchy subjects. I guess his lawyer, his team felt like it was very wildly inappropriate, on top of it being um, like so irrelevant in a sense, because a lot of what has been said and what has been rumored upon, because I will say that a lot of these were rumored upon, because a lot of the accusations that, whether they're fans, whether they're not fans of Marilyn Manson, um, were that the women that he was with, he was abusive towards. And I find that very interesting that a lot of people outside of his circle and a lot of people that don't really listen to his music or don't really follow him as a whole are still accusing him of things, as if it was, 1999 again. And for those of you who don't know, he was accused of, he was actually blamed for the reason why the boys of Columbine shot up the school. Now, I'm going to be realistic with you guys. They did not actually listen to his music. I have gone through so many documentaries, I have read so many articles, and I've also read many articles on other mass shooters, to this present day, when it comes to schools, when it comes to society in general. And a lot of the music that they have listened to wasn't just Marilyn Manson. I mean, you've got Insane Clown Posse, you've got Rob Zombie, you've got Metallica, you've got Slipknot, you've got basically everybody in the metal slash death metal slash rock alternative standpoint. And we can't always blame one artist. And I find it interesting that a lot of people that blame um, rock music in general for being satanic or pushing demonic forces on someone, or causing music in general, whether that's rock or rap or any other genre. I find it interesting that people actually believe that this will possess you. Um, Obviously, I can't talk more in depth on this with this channel. I will be discussing more on my podcast. simply because it's a free, open area where I can speak on this. And as someone that, had to endure this as a child, I can actually explain to you um, how this actually works. So if you guys want to check out my podcast after this, I will link in the description below, like I did my last video. And that apparently worked, and a lot of people that I have sent the link to that wanted to know more about my channel prefer that I do it this way, because this is like the clickbait or the bait that they want to bite into, and then the podcast you're getting the actual thing, because there's a lot of things you can't say on many platforms. So I'm glad that the podcast is there for me to speak freely on things that I endured, and the what's really going on, or what the actual um, objectives are, depending on what people are claiming in society. But obviously, can I can basically prove to you that there is no such thing as a possession when it comes to music. There are some exceptions, but obviously I will explain more in depth. But I find that very, very interesting that that's people's go-to. Like, they don't know what else to say about metal or rock or death metal, even classical rock music. That's people's go-to. Like, they can't really debate, they can't really have a discussion. That's just their go-to, and then the other person's supposed to shut up um, when it comes to uh, a debate about this, or even just a discussion when it comes to this. And what I also find interesting is that all of the women, if you read um, the many articles that go along with this, because this is not just one article. I know there is one article where all of his exes basically state that he was good to them. They were lucky enough to not have to deal with most of the abuse that happens in Hollywood or certain artists that they encounter. So, um, I have read many, many, many articles over the years when it comes to Marilyn Manson, and I just couldn't understand what the point was. Like, I didn't understand what the point of the article was. I didn't understand what the point of, like, so many people saying different things, and then the ex is going back and saying, oh, I wasn't talking about him, or I wasn't referring to him, I was referring to a different ex that I had. And in reality, there's no telling, because a lot of these women have dated multiple men. So if they've dated multiple men, how are you supposed to keep track of who's the abuser and who's not? You can't. You can't really. And just because of his image, his shock value image, I mean, that's who he presents. I mean, you're not really getting, you're not, he's not really misleading. He's not going to bullshit you. You're getting what you pay for, like whether you go see his concerts, whether you listen to his music, everything is shock value. And even though people want to say that he is satanic, he worships the devil because he is friends with I believe, the leader of, one of the leaders of the Satanic Temple. Again, there's no telling. We can't make a judgment on someone we don't really know. At the end of the day, no one really knows him but himself and whoever he believes in. And then there are other people that have tried to basically get his music shut down. I remember, I believe it was last year, when this whole explosion of Kanye being holy again, and Kanye uh, believing in God, and he's back to being a Christian, and in reality, he wasn't. It was just people following him, people worshiping him. I don't see the difference between that and the correlation between people defending Manson. I really don't. But he did a concert, I believe, with oh, I can't remember the rapper's name now. For the life of me, I can't remember the rappers. I think it was Chance the Rapper that he did a concert, and then Marilyn Manson also did a concert. I believe it was Coachella, if I'm not mistaken. This was last year. This is when this is when Kanye started going big on being a part of God's path or whatever. And people were um, losing their minds because how was Kanye about God and how was Chance the Rapper about God when Marilyn Manson was burning the Bible? Now, I have my beliefs on doing that, and he has his. At the end of the day, it is what it is. And it's no difference between that and the rioters doing the same thing. They have done that in 2020 also. You see a lot of articles. I don't watch the news. I'm not gonna base my opinion on the news because it's obviously one-sided. So a lot of the articles and a lot of what people in those towns have told me specifically that seems to be a trend now. I don't know what that does for people as far as burning the Bible. That's not just something I believe in, but that's just me. Even though I am not religious and I don't follow a church, that's just, again, not something I believe in. Um, but I just thought that was contradictory and hypocritical of people to go against him when so many people do it um, often. And I lost count as to how many cities and how many people were gathering together to burn the Bible. So we can't be hypocritical. We can't say one thing about one person that we don't even know and then go doing it ourselves. I mean, this was happening all over the cities at the beginning of 2020. So I just thought that was interesting that a lot of people felt the need to have that judgment or that criticism against him. And then as far as the Me Too movement, because that's what it was, that was the article pertained to out of all of these women. As far as the Me Too movement, at the end of the day, if you're a regular woman like myself, if you're not a part of the industry like myself, the Me Too movement wasn't for us. It was for them. It was for the women that chose to go into contract knowing what they were getting into. When it comes to um, that part of the world, that part of society, you're going to have to do some things in order to move up the ladder. That's how men see us. That's how society sees us. We are nothing but objects. So this shouldn't be a surprise to regular women like myself. This should not be a freaking surprise to other regular women that you have to sell your body to move up the ladder. I mean, this has been going on for centuries. Like, come on. Not only this, the victimization that they play upon to get to where they need to be. That's what the whole thing was about. So that's why I was never a part of the Me Too movement. Was I violated by multiple men? Yes. Was I a victim? I don't consider myself one because let's figure out where that actual term comes from. That is actually a legal term. Victim is actually a legal term. That comes from the word of the law because that is how they separate in the court of law between a predator and a victim or a victim and the perpetrator. Now let's be realistic. In the justice system, it's actually reversed, where the perpetrator is the victim and then the victim is the perpetrator. If you follow what I'm saying. Because at the end of the day, there is no such thing as justice. Not for minorities like myself, not for, let's put it this way, I am disabled, I am a woman, I am bisexual, so I'm part of the LGBTQ plus, and then I am Hispanic. My ancestors come from Mayan and Aztec Indian, even though they also came from Spain and France. So I have a lot of things against me. So at the end of the day, there is no such thing as justice for people like myself because my ancestors didn't get they didn't get a chance. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about as far as the Aztec and the Mayan Empire, I will explain that towards Thanksgiving. You guys will have an idea of what really went down for my ancestors. Um, and I find it uh, really sad that a lot of people fell for this victimization. Now, his biggest critic right now, um, his biggest backlash right now is the song Perfume. Now, obviously, I cannot play this song for copyright reasons, but I will go through the lyrics, but I will. It's going to be on silent just so you guys know. I will be playing it. And then for those of you who don't have an iPhone, if you play your songs on iTunes, there's a feature where the lyrics come up and they literally go up. They like literally move as the singer is singing it, whatever they're singing. Um, and because I have an iPhone, my font is obviously really big, and it's easier for me to read. And if even if I have my voiceover feature on, it'll play the song in the background, but it'll also be reading the lyrics as well. So I am looking it up right now, just so I should have had this on hand, but I thought I added it, but I did not. Um, Now, me personally, I wasn't a fan of this song, but I was a fan of other songs that he did on his latest album. And this is obviously a new album, and I will go into detail as to why um, I became a fan of his at a very young age. Um, so this is this is the beginning. So you wear your damage on your sleeve, but don't worry, it's all just tongue in cheek. Not a victim of fashion, more fascist than Vogue, cause victim is chic. If you conjure the devil, you better make sure you got a bed for him to sleep. So, for those of you who want to run rampant on the lyrics, I have always been a good person to explain and break down lyrics for people. I don't know where I get this from. It might be the musical side of me because I have a lot of musical talents in my family as well. Um, but basically, what he's saying is you can't play victim knowing, like, basically, you can't play victim when we all know what your agenda is. You're trying to get closer to the devil depending on what they're trying to get, whether it's money, whether it's fame, whether it doesn't matter what it is, right? And once you do grab the attention of the devil, or once you have him, you better make sure you have a place for him to stay. Um, that's pretty self-explanatory. But a lot of people think that this song in particular is triggering for a lot of women that are quote unquote victims. This is triggering for women that feel like they have gone through, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's rape, whether it doesn't matter of what type of violence they have um, gone through in their life. Um, they feel like this song is, or it should be banned, or it shouldn't be played, so on and so forth, right? I am one of these women. I am one of these women that endured a lot as a child alone. Now, I have also been in domestic violence situations, not because of someone else. Like, everybody wants to blame other people for their situations. I was in 3 domestic violence situations because of me. Now, at the end of the day, you don't know who you're with, right? You don't know until you start getting together with them. And then you start seeing red flags. You can't ignore the red flags because once you start ignoring them, you get deeper in and then you can't get out. You feel like you cannot get out. Why is that? Because it's dangerous. I have almost died twice. The first two pretty abusive and pretty violent relationships that I was in, I almost died. I'm not gonna bullshit you. That was from leaving. That was from leaving the relationship after 3 months, 2 months, whatever it was. I almost died because they literally tried to kill me to try to keep me. I don't know how the fuck that's gonna keep you, but that'll keep you. Excuse my language. And then the other person, they took their own life. So either way, it's not a good scenario, right? But the reason I say that it was my own doing is because I didn't have enough self worth. At the end of the day, someone who decides to be in an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship, doesn't even have to be physical abuse. It can be emotional, it can be psychological abuse. You don't have enough worth. Now, if these women are claiming that Marilyn Manson was abusive, like I said earlier, he's not gonna bullshit you. You know what you're getting when you meet him. You know what you're getting, whether you go to his shows, whether you know who he is in general. Um, were there no red flags? I mean, we've got, like at the shows, he's into bondage. At the shows, he's into a lot of sexual acts. In the shows, and again, it's all, everything is a shock value, right? So if he's into that, and he even self harms at his shows. I don't know if he still does it now, but he did back then. He has over 300 scars on his body. He has said this from self harming. um, he might lie to himself and say that he's not a self harmer, he's not a cutter. Yeah, that's addicting. If it's over 300, it might be even well more over than that, but you become addicted. I don't care what anyone tries to deny themselves or become delusional of, but at the end of the day, you become addicted to that. It's addicting. It's just like an addiction. It's just like drugs. It's just like alcohol. You can't stop. Um, But at the end of the day, people, like, especially the women that are attracted to him, like, you know what you're getting into, you know the type of person he is, you are well aware of what you're getting. So I didn't understand the victim mentality when it's not like they didn't know who he was. They didn't know his lifestyle. He was a rock star. He's a rock star. And what are rock stars into? They're into drugs, they're into alcohol, right? Um, I mean, he's sober now. that we know of. Like, again, we don't know someone's sobriety, and it's not for us to judge whether they're still using, whether they're still not. I am also a recovered, whatever you want to call it, alcoholic and addict. And a lot of people that I used to have in my life didn't like that I said that because I no longer use. But at the end of the day, if someone is ashamed, so if someone you know is ashamed of you and you are recovering or you're recovered, um, at the end of the day, they're ashamed that that was a part of your life or that is a part of your life. And if, if they can't benefit you, then it's not worth it, right? So it's not for us to say that he is sober, he's not sober. It is what it is. We don't know, right? So for them to play victim and say that he's this, he's that, he's abusive, blah blah blah. And honestly, I think they were just trying to get something out of him because it did create chaos, which is what they wanted. Because then when people asked a lot of these women, they backtracked. They said, "Oh well, he was a good guy to me. I don't know what you're talking about." Like they retracted their statements. So when they first said it, I think they wanted the publicity. I think they wanted to make him a target, and it didn't even work. Like people still went to his concerts. People are still going into his albums. People are still, um, people are still idolizing him. So I don't know why people acted like this was something that needed to be done or needed to be said or whatever the case may be. And as far as me and myself, obviously I can't go too much into detail again when it comes to why I became a big fan of his. Um, Let me look at the discography because I don't want to get the albums wrong. And I know a lot of you guys are like, well, if especially Marilyn Manson fans, if you are a fan of his, how do you not know the albums by heart? Um, you will hear me say time and time again when it comes to celebrities, I'm not a fanatic, I'm not a worshiper. Um, I've just never been one of those people that is obsessed and worships and lives and dies on these famous people. I mean, that's just never been who I actually am because of where I come from, because of my background, because of what I endured. And I will explain, obviously, a lot more in the later months to come because it gets sketchy and it gets it gets graphic and you know what I mean. It's a lot. 2003. Okay. After my father passed, and I will get more into this more in depth when I do the podcast. But after my dad passed in 2003, his album Golden Age of Grotesque came out. And as as a younger person who endured what I endured, a lot of rock music resonated with me. It made me feel better, and that's ultimately what music should do. It should make you feel good. It should make you feel better. It should give you a different purpose besides worshiping these people, right? Um, and a lot of whether it was, I mean, I didn't just listen to Marilyn Manson. I listened to Ozzy Osbourne. I listened to, I mean, in the ages of coming up, I listened to Stain. I listened to Linkin Park. I listened to um, Limp Bizkit, Metallica. I'm just trying to go through all of the There's too many to count, to be honest with you. But those were my favorites to go to. And a lot of the times when I went to my public high school, before I switched schools, people were surprised that I would be listening to like those types of music, because to them that was pretty awesome that a girl would actually listen and knew the lyrics and could resonate with that. Because back when I was, in high school, a lot of girls weren't into, rock music. A lot of girls were into the more pop, hip hop, that kind of thing. And I wasn't, at that time, I wasn't into that. That wasn't what I resonated with. And it was relatable more for me only because um, with my depression and with my anxiety, the music, I was always wearing headphones, whether I was in school, whether I was at home, whether I was socializing. The headphones and listening to the music was my way to release my anxiety, because I had a lot of social anxiety. I had a lot of just like a lot of anxiety in general. And that was because of what I went through. I didn't trust men. I didn't trust um, my surroundings. Like, it was pretty bad when I was younger. And with the OCD being pretty severe, also when I was younger, that was just one of my coping mechanisms, as to make sure I had the headphones in and made sure that I had music that would resonate to help me relax and calm more. And for a lot of people, like, how can you, as a deaf person, how can you listen to um, rock music if it may potentially hurt your ears? It doesn't. For someone that is deaf or hard of hearing, you actually have to blast it even harder for you to actually hear the lyrics. In my case, I can't speak for other people that are deaf or deafblind. And I know what people get that a lot, where how do you listen to music if you're deaf? Um, yeah, we're just like everybody else. We're not, like, just sitting around twiddling our thumbs. I don't know why people assume this about deaf people in general, let alone someone who is like myself, deaf and blind. But I resonated more because of what I went um, through those lyrics. And for those of you who want to argue about the music making me more depressed and more anxious, that's why I was listening to it again. Listen to the podcast, because I will explain more in depth, um, as far as possession, as far as what the artists are trying to convey, that sort of thing. Because there's a lot of misconceptions right now with truthers and conspiracy theorists. I'm putting all of that in quotes because they don't like those words, yet they're the ones that call themselves that. It is what it is, right? So I will let you guys go. I wanted to give you guys a different perspective on this situation. I know there are a lot of you who follow Marilyn Manson, and there are also a lot of you who are against him. And I understand it, but at the same time, it's hypocritical, and I understand the misleading articles and the misleading media that you got on this standpoint. So I wanted to give you a different perspective as to maybe that this isn't what you think it is. Maybe it's not what it seems. And as far as people that wanna backlash, because I know there's gonna be a lot of people that are going to want to say shit on whether it's my comments or whether it's my other social medias. At the end of the day, you're going to be arguing with yourself, because I don't have time for it. I don't have the energy. I don't argue at all on social media. It's pointless, because at the end of the day, people are hiding behind a keyboard. A lot of people are afraid to confront in person, but they're not afraid to confront in on their phones or on the computer. So I find that very interesting. But that's, you know, what our world's come to. It's like people are big and bad and talk shit and are tough as nails when it comes to the hiding behind the keyboards, but in person, yeah, people are running. So I will talk to you guys very soon, and I hope to see you guys in my next one. All right, love you guys.